I look now and I think we carry the burdens as moms of what is going on everywhere. I am
Yeah.
talking everywhere in the whole wide world at every given time.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am back this week with Aby Rinella, and I am so excited about this topic that we're going to talk about this week. I know it is one that is going to be so encouraging to myself and to everyone who is listening. It's a topic that I won't say all of us, that the majority of us deal with. We're going to talk about social media and the effects of social media on us as moms. And I know we've talked a lot about this with our kids, in regards to our kids, but not so much us as moms. So we're going to talk about that this week. But before we get into it, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, CTC Math. If you guys are looking for a great online math program, visit ctcmath.com and try them out for free. I actually just read a review from one of our local homeschool moms here in Oklahoma, and she was saying that she had tried a bunch of different math programs and nothing worked for her kids. And she finally discovered CTC Math, and it was a huge game changer for her. She said it literally has changed her son he's excited about doing math. He dreaded it before, and he is now excited about math. He wants to do his math lessons because they're fun. And I won't say easy, depends on the kid, but they teach it for you. You can go back and rewatch any of the lessons and just go at your own child's pace. And I think that's the best way to homeschool, is to go at the pace that works best for your child. So if you have not checked them out, you can try them for free. Summertime is the best time to do that. ctcmath.com. See if it's a good match for your family. We are here with Aby. Aby, I am so glad to have you back with me this week.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. You sent me an article that you wrote. This was, I think you wrote it a couple weeks ago.
Uh-huh.
And it's called The Original Influencer. And I read this article and I was so blown away. I was like, yes. I mean, the whole way through. And I'm going to let you talk kind of through that article, but it was so powerful because you're talking about, we talk about influencers in our world today. And we've had some, what people would consider influencers here on the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast.
Right.
And basically these are people that influence other people.
Right.
Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. We've had the ones who influence people for the good, who love Jesus and who are really striving to point their families and their kids to Jesus and their followers as well.
Right.
But we've gotten kind of into this weird cycle of, these little short, what do you call them? Reels?
Yes.
These reels where you're just flipping through and you're on Instagram and you're watching all these other people live these perfect lives. And you're like, wow, that's not me. So let's talk about this. As homeschool moms, I think this is something that we all struggle with, whether we struggle with it on social media or in real life.
Right.
It's a struggle. So, I mean, first, let me just ask, what prompted you to write this, and then talk a little bit about the article.
Okay, well, I think what prompted me is we talk so much about the effects of social media on kids. I think in the homeschool world, everybody's pretty much on the same page. Your kids aren't on it. We know that it's damaging. We get that it's damaging. That's kind of that's kind of something that the world knows now, right? There's enough stuff out there that people get that. But it's just struck me lately on how many moms are drawn to this. And we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the effects on moms that are drawn to it because we think, well, we're adults, we can handle it. It's not a big deal. It's not like we're going to be sucked into things like porn or, scary people. Those are the things you worry about with your kids, but we're like, oh, we're moms. That would never, And so we don't think of it that way. But then it just really hit me as I'm watching all these young moms who are, okay, when I first started homeschooling, I went to every older mom I could get my hands on. Can I look through your stuff? Tell me about homeschooling. Tell me how to be a mom. Tell me what, how do you fix that meal? How do you, and I just, the women in my church or who I went to, my mom, her friends, and I'm looking around now and my little cousin calls me all the time with questions and it blesses me, but I'm looking at her generation. I'm going, you guys are getting all your information on social media. Everything that you're learning from your peers. And we're going to go into this, but I think that's what spurred me as I'm looking at how I grew up learning things and then this new generation and where they're getting their information and how they're getting their information. And it's really struck me at honestly how damaging it is. And I'm not saying that there's not good that comes from it, because
Right.
there can be, but it really hit me. And so I was I don't know, inspired to write that article. And you can find that at our website. It's up on there, but
And we'll link
and
to it, of course.
yeah, we can link to it, but it just really talks about where are we to get our influence? Who are we to be influenced by? Where are we to learn? And it dives into Titus 2 and what that really looks like. And so you and I were like, let's talk about it on the podcast. Let's talk about the things that we need to be aware of as moms as we navigate social media, not for our kids, but for
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a tough thing to balance. I feel like, I know for myself, if we go back to the olden days,
Yes.
of not having any of this stuff. I just was talking with Brooklyn the other day, and I said, and I've said this on the podcast before, but I, in so many ways, hate the world that they're growing up in,
Right, right.
because it's so different than how we grew up. I said, but like Esther, we're
Yep,
here for such a time as this. Like the Lord knew
totally.
that we would be here at this time in history. And so I'm not going to fret about it. Like we do what we
Right,
do with what we have.
right.
But life was so much simpler
Oh
back in
my
the 80s and
goodness.
90s when we were growing up. It just was.
100%.
We didn't have all of the, we had pressure back then, I felt like, but it was more peer pressure, like in person, or
Right,
maybe, our teen magazine or 17
right.
magazine, which was
Totally.
total garbage. And I wish I hadn't ever had a subscription to either of those,
Right.
but that was what we saw. And now it's
Yeah.
like everything has just changed so drastically.
Yep.
Um,
And it's everywhere. And
yeah,
I think too, like as moms, well, like you said, things were simpler. We were designed to know what's going on in our homes, and
mhm,
then know what's going on as far as outside of our homes, in our communities, in our
right,
churches. And historically, people really didn't know much about what was going on. I mean, go way back when. They didn't
right.
know much about what was going on outside of literally their neighborhood or their
Mhm.
little small towns. And then maybe as time went on, they would know what was going on a town over. Or maybe, as things progressed, they would know a little bit what was going on in their state. But I look now and I think we carry the burdens as moms of what is going on everywhere. I am
Yeah.
talking everywhere in the whole wide world at every given time. At
Yep.
any moment in time, we are carrying, and because of the nature of how God made women, and we're nurturers, and we carry some of that. We are carrying the weight of the entire world
Yeah.
all the time. And we see moms who are overwhelmed and they're depressed and they feel hopeless. And
Mhm.
it's so overwhelming. And I remember my husband told me that at one time. He's like, we were never meant to know what's going on across the ocean. Like people didn't know what was going. And I'm not saying turn off the news. We do need to know. It's very important that we know what's going on in our world so
Sure.
we can be active. We're called to be. But ultimately, it's our communities and now it's like nobody really knows what's going on in their community, but they know what's happening across the country and across the
Right.
world all the time. And we carry that weight, and it causes depression, it causes anxiety,
Right.
and we were never meant to know what's going on all over all the time,
Right.
always.
Yeah. And I think also so much of what we see is not reality.
Oh,
You look at the news and
absolutely.
you see, for
Totally.
instance, we just had this crazy, a few weeks ago, this crazy like windstorm that came through our town.
Right.
And it wasn't a tornado, but it was like 100-mile-an-hour
Right.
plus winds.
Right.
And so it did some destruction. Some trees fell. I don't think that anybody lost their lives over it, but I mean, it was destructive.
Right.
But like in our neighborhood, I think like a couple of people had trees that, tipped over, and
Right.
that was about it. But of course, then my mom calls and she's like, "Are you okay? Are you
Right.
dead?" And I'm like,
Totally.
because
Putting
she
that
sees
fear
on
in
the
you.
news, right, that,
Yeah.
it looks like all of the Tulsa area
Totally.
is completely destroyed.
Totally.
And so much of what we see it's false. It's
Yep.
dramatized.
It's
It's for
totally.
the story.
Yep.
You see the stories. This was several years ago. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a hurricane that came through the East Coast, and I think it was in South Carolina. There was a news story, and it was a like a news reporter standing in this crazy, water, and then behind him and looking like, the wind is blowing him,
Right. Right.
away. And then behind him are two people riding bikes and walking.
Yeah.
Like it was no big deal. And you're just
Isn't that
like,
funny?
that was so fake. They're just
They
being
totally do it
dramatic.
for numbers. They do it for
Right.
views. And that's what we can go into, with as far as social media, because it's a bit the same.
Right.
And then what it does is it makes us go, I would watch that and I'd go, oh no, I need to prepare for a big wind like that because that could
Right.
happen. So everybody's in this constant prepping phase.
Busy,
And then
yeah.
I stop and I'm like, I will never, ever, ever get a wind like that where I live because I have the mountains. I should probably be thinking about like avalanches or,
Right.
but when we see everything now, I'm stressing about, the tide coming in. And I'm like, I don't
Right.
even live anywhere near the ocean, but
Right.
it's putting things in us that we are as moms naturally because
Yeah.
we're protectors, and then we start worrying about things that aren't ours to worry about. They're
Right.
not even a part of our sphere and our real life, but we're watching it in other people's lives. And it really derails what God has called us to do in the here and the now. And so
Right.
I think today what we want to do is kind of just go through the list of some things to be aware of as moms as we navigate this world for ourselves, not just our kids, because it starts
Yeah.
with us. We can't pass on what we don't have. We can't help our kids navigate something that we aren't navigating well.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go through a list because we like lists here at
We
the
like
Schoolhouse Rocked podcast.
It's
We love
tidy.
checklists. So let's talk through these. But first, let's
Yeah.
take a break. We'll be right
Okay.
back. We want to thank all of our sponsors for making this show possible. BJU Press Homeschool, CTC Math, Apologia, and IEW. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. Visit the show notes for links to these great companies and thank them for supporting the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. Okay, so lists. We love lists. Let's talk. Let's just kind of walk through this
Okay.
craziness of influencers.
Yep.
I know, Abby, in your article, you talk about kind of the original influencers
Right,
and what that
right.
looked like. Can we
Yep.
start there? Because I want to
Yes.
go back to like,
Absolutely.
what was that like before we had all this
Okay.
social media and stuff?
Right.
What did that look like even for you? But let's go even back even
Farther
further.
back.
What were influencers like back in the olden days?
And back in the olden days, well, think from the very beginning. I mean, and God writes about this, Titus 2. He says the older women are to teach the younger, right? And then what does it talk about teaching them? Like how to be a wife, how to, run all of that. The Bible talks about nonstop. It comes through personal relationships with people in your real life, right? That's what the original influencer is. So need to learn how to cook. You sit at the feet starting when you're a little tiny girl with your mom who taught you to cook. Need to learn how to, rock a baby, change a diaper. You didn't run to Pinterest to find out what the best diaper was. You talked to the women in your community, in your life, your mom, your grandma, your aunt, your neighbor. And those were the original influencers. And how they influenced was by being a part of your life, like actually doing life shoulder to shoulder together. And that's how we passed things on. That's how we learned things. It
Yeah.
wasn't by, peeping Tom into somebody else's life.
Right.
And so that's what really struck me is the article starts with the list of women in my life that just shared things, like even down to the simple thing of like my sister-in-law teaching me how to get gross things off of a pan by sprinkling baking soda and making a paste. And, I remember specifically learning that from her. And how did I do it? Well, it's because we had cooked together in a kitchen together.
Right.
And she was a step ahead of me. And so she showed me that. And it's through relationships and doing life together. And that was how God designed the original influencer. That's how we were influenced, is by the women in our real life.
Many of us still have that,
Right.
right. In a
We
sense,
do.
especially if we live close by, mom or grandma or,
Yeah.
an aunt or just a good friend, ladies in our church, things like that.
Yeah.
But it really has changed. So
yeah. And I think by default, people Google something, want to know how to
Right.
do something, find it
yeah.
out. Want to know how to make bread, hop online and you'll get 53 different people telling you 53 different ways. People don't naturally call their neighbor lady next door. I mean, it's not happening, And I
Right.
think we live in a generation where, and the problem with that is we're learning from someone that's learning simultaneous. Like when I look at these influencers, I'm like, you just planted your first garden this year and now you're giving garden tutorials. And so they don't have that wisdom and that the years of the experience, the years of figuring it out and finding out what works and what doesn't work. And I also I want to go back actually for a minute because you had said the word. So we talk a lot about influencers, but who are the influencers influencing? And you said it. They're influencing their followers. That's what it's called,
Hmm.
followers.
Right.
And even just the terminology that this social media world has taken has really it struck me. It's like they're taking words that God gave because he said, "What? Come and follow me." Right?
Mm,
A follower. And I even think it's twisting what is a follower, right? Today, what a follower is it's someone that you don't know them, they don't know you. Like the
mhm.
people I follow on social media, they have no idea who I am. They have
Right.
no clue who I could die tomorrow and they wouldn't even know. And I truly don't have a clue who they are. I know what they show me, you know?
Right.
And I think it's leaving a whole generation void of even understanding like what is a follower. When Jesus said, "Come and follow me," he that means to be known and to know, like to know him and to be known by him, to trust him, to depend on him, and to be obedient to him. Like that's
Mhm.
what a real follower is. And we've twisted this follower, and it's really, I kind of liken it to it's a peeping Tom. Like
Yeah.
really, we are a peeping Tom into people's lives, And then
Sure.
rather than do this Titus 2 thing and learning, I mean, the Bible is clear. Learn from who? The older. The older are to teach the younger. And that's not what's happening. We're having this peer to peer learning. And I don't really find that in the word. And the other damaging thing I think it's doing is I'm seeing this older generation who feel like they're not needed or wanted. Um,
Yeah.
and I've noticed this older generation, they hit retirement and then their life is about what do we get to do next? Where do we get to travel? What hobbies do we get to take up? Because they're not needed and wanted by the younger generation anymore. And
Yeah.
it's sad to me. It's really sad to me to
Yeah.
see that disconnect, that generational disconnect. So that first one is we're getting this misconception of what is a follower,
Mhm.
and I think that can affect us biblically. Is what does it mean to follow Christ? It
Yeah.
doesn't mean to just check in once in a while and see if he's made any new reels that I need to see that day. It's a relationship. That's
Yeah.
what it is. Um, the next thing that I think that social media has done to harm us as moms or can do is it gives us a real misconception of what community is. Even the
Yeah.
word community it now means a group of people that all follow the same person. So
Yeah.
you hear an influencer say like, "You're part of my community." And it's funny, I reflect on all that stuff and I'm like, this isn't a community. Nobody in this community knows one another. Like
Right.
nobody has a clue who anybody else is here. And the person we're following has no idea who we even are. And what I'm seeing is that the enemy is using social media as a tool for isolation, right? We think we have these relationships with people. We think we can go to these people for wisdom. You ask any young homeschool mom, um, where did you learn that? And they all follow the same people, Joe Schmo at blah, blah, blah. And that's who we go to learn about this because she's the expert in
Right.
this. And we're part of her community. And these moms think that they have these relationships with these people because they spend all day watching their real. I'm guilty. I'm saying this because I'm guilty. I check in with the same online person, and I feel like I know them because I spend so much time with them. But ultimately, I think it would take the click of a button. It would literally take the click of a button by whoever is in charge of the World Wide Web,
Yeah.
and they turn it off like that, and we're all alone. Our
Yep.
community's gone. The people we get wisdom are gone. The people we follow are gone. And that's scary to me. It's
Yeah.
scary to me that all these young moms are so even homeschool. Like, where do I learn about the latest, greatest curriculum? It isn't the moms that went before me. And with the click of a button, it could all be shut down. And I want to challenge these moms and say, where would you stand then? Do you have your church community? Are you invested? Because like you said, let's go back to the olden days.
Right.
Do we have our churches? Do we have our communities? If something went down and everything in the world shut down, where would you go? Because you can't go to so and so at so and so on Instagram. Are you really investing in your real, true communities that are actually around you that you could actually physically go to these people? Because that is how God designed it. That's how He
Yeah.
designed us to do life shoulder to shoulder.
Yep. We're out of time. We're
Oh
going
my
to talk more about
goodness.
this. I know. I know. We're going to come back on Wednesday, talk more about this because there's a lot to talk about with
Yeah.
this. I'm thinking through a lot of things and making notes and yeah, there are a lot of different directions to go with this. So we're going to come back on Wednesday. Abby, thank you for your heart. You have such a heart for people. You have such a heart for the
Oh.
Lord. And I
Well,
am
I
so
just want
excited to
women to
have you.
experience relationship the way
Yeah.
that we were meant to,
Yeah.
real,
Yep.
true woman to woman relationship the way God designed that
Yep.
actually fulfills us and doesn't drain us.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to bring
Awesome.
some hope to people. Thank you guys for listening. It struck me that as we're talking about this, like I mean, I wouldn't call myself an influencer in regards to,
Right.
I don't have 200,000 followers on Instagram or anything like that, but we do have influence, and the
Right.
Lord calls us to have influence. He
Yes.
calls us to do these things to impact his kingdom.
Totally.
And so influence is not always a bad thing.
No.
It's that we need to know how to balance
Right.
it with reality.
Right.
So we're going
And
to
at
talk
the
more
end of
about
the
that
day,
too.
we want to influence you guys to go to the women that God has put in your life.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's right. So, well, Abby, thank you so much. And thank you guys for listening. We are so privileged to have you as part of the Schoolhouse Rocked community. Can I say that, Abby?
Yes, you can. We are a community.
We are a community. And you guys are such a blessing to us. I love hearing from you. I love getting emails from you. I got an email not too long ago from one of our listeners, and she just said, my husband had an accident. He's really suffering. Can you just pray for him? And I was like, yes,
Aw.
absolutely. And I love that. I love knowing
Yes.
what's going on in your lives
Yeah.
and how we
But
can pray
that's
for
because
you.
you're building a relationship with her, a real one
Right.
that she can reach out to you. And, it is a
Yeah.
back and forth relationship.
Yeah, exactly. So reach out to us. We would
Yes,
love that. You
please.
can always email us at podcast@schoolhouserocked.com. We've gotten emails for Abby, and we always forward those on to her, and she will respond to those as well. But we love you guys so much, and we are so grateful for you and grateful for just your willingness to spend time listening to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast today. So have a great rest of your day. Check out everything that we have at schoolhouserocked.com, including our super cool swag. We've got cool t-shirts and mugs and bags and all kinds of fun stuff there. So you can find all of that at schoolhouserocked.com. Have a great day. We'll see you back here on Wednesday. Bye.
Education is discipleship, and this is something I didn't understand until I was probably 3 years into homeschooling. The Bible teaches us in Luke 6:40 that when a student is fully trained, he will be like his teacher. And as we look around the culture right now, I think it begs the question, who is teaching our children? Who is teaching our children, and what are they teaching our children? And to me, the primary benefit of having my children home with me is I am able to impart my worldview to my children.